Hey TPT sellers, let's talk about cracking the TPT SEO algorithm. What do I mean by that? Let's see if we can figure out what is the number one factor that leads to a higher rank in TPT search. Here is a visual representation of the TPT SEO algorithm. It is a black box. We don't know exactly how it works. What we do know is they use a company called Algolia to power their search engine. And we know from the Algolia developer manual how that search engine works. The point of any search engine is to put relevant results in front of the person searching. Because if the person searching doesn't find what they're looking for, then they're going to think that the search algorithm sucks and they'll use a different search engine. In this case, if teachers don't find the resources that they're searching for on TPT, then they don't search on TPT, they go to Google. So Team TPT has to constantly update the search algorithm and monitor business metrics and define success from a business perspective. What percentage of teachers searching actually find what they're looking for and download a resource? If you are on Team TPT's search engineering department, then you know exactly how the search engine works because Algolia software lets you look at a result and Algolia will tell you which rules were applied and why that resource is where it is in search. We're on the outside, so we can only guess what the exact formula is. But the beautiful thing about a community is that we can crowdsource our observations and see if there are any patterns. So that's what this video is about. Can we crack the SEO algorithm and figure out what patterns seem to produce the best results? My name is Mike Fuchigami. I am the host of the SEOTpreneur YouTube community. If this is your first video, welcome to the channel. This video is for TPT hamsters and TPT hawks. And if you're not familiar with those phrases, check out the video at the top. It's a free business course that walks you through all the stages of being a teacherpreneur. If you're a TPT egg or tadpole, the game is mostly about figuring out how do I package my teaching lesson and post it onto TPT and figure out how to do those product covers and the previews and how to write a product description. Those are all important skills. At the hamster stage, we've been running on that TPT product content creation hamster wheel for a while. And chances are you've got some products out there and you know they're great lessons because they work in your classroom, but they're not selling. And so then the game becomes learning how does the search engine work so that I can put my best foot forward and optimize my chances of getting to the top of page one. So this is one of my Sunday SEO secrets video where we look at the developer manual. This is a screenshot from the Algolia YouTube video that talks about how their tie-breaking rule search algorithm works. We know that there are 7 Algolia rules that are focused on keyword relevance, and then the last rule is focused on business metrics. I have a free TPT SEO course based on everything I've learned about TPT SEO by going into the developer manual. Check out the link at the top. Usually when we talk about Algolia, we talk about the first 7 criteria, and then we look at Algolia criteria number 8, which is custom business metrics. Here's a screenshot from the developer manual. This is what Team TPT sees when they log into their search engine. And you can see here the green box shows us the first 7 criteria, which is typo, geolocation, words, filters, proximity, attribute, and then exact match. And after that, Team TPT can add as many custom ranking tie-breaking rules as they want. So even though we say criteria number 8, they could easily put 10 different tie-breaking rules for criteria number 8. In the Algolia example on the screen here, after the first 7 keyword relevance criteria have been applied, in this example, they're looking to see whether the resource is featured, yes or no. So if it's featured, it goes a little bit higher. It's in the first group. And then the second one is number of likes. This isn't Team TPT. This is just a sample of the Algolia dashboard. But criteria number 8 doesn't always have to be at the end. Here's an example where the company has decided to put some sorting features at the very beginning before the first 7 criteria are applied. In this example, Algolia search is first sorting all of the resource based on whether it's featured or not. And then the second question that it's sorting on is whether it has an image. And then we go into the 7 criteria for textual relevance. And then finally, we have business metrics. And in their example, they call it sales rank. No matter how it's set up, the very last rule in this custom ranking has to be a numeric value that you can sort all of the resources on. Everything before it can be a yes/no question because you want it to show up into buckets. For example, do you have a cover image? Yes, you do. No, you don't. If the answer is no, then you appear later on. We know from the Algolia manual the order that the search engine applies certain specific criteria and rules. This is the same search formula that is applied for TPT search as it is for looking up resources on our TPT store page. At least that's what I'm assuming, because it makes sense to reuse the code in different places if you can. When I search on Teachers Pay Teachers, there are 6 different things that could be applied by the formula. I'm just going to click in the search box. As an example, I'm going to type science activity. I'm going to hit enter on that, and then I'm going to change this to the list view. When I typed in science activity, the first 7 rules kicked into effect because it's looking to find, of all the resources in the TPT database, which ones are about science activity. And so it does that textual ranking criteria. TPT has decided that there are 970,000 results that are all about science activity. So then the second part here in this list here, business relevance, which is custom rule number 8, it starts to look at the internal TPT metrics to figure out, okay, well, this should be at the top of TPT search, and here's the search order. If you watched my free TPT SEO course, you know that this is where they could implement a decay penalty or a store halo effect, where basically they look at the resource and they decide, was it updated in the last day? The answer is yes, put it in this group. The answer is it was updated a week ago, put it in the second group. It was updated a month ago, put it in the third group. It was updated a year ago, put it in the fourth group. They could also favor resources based on when they sold. It's easy to imagine they have a criteria. Did this resource sell in the last week? Or did a resource on the store sell in the last week? Or did a resource in this bundle sell in the last week? And so then the question is, did it sell in the last day? You're in the first group. Did it sell within the last week? You're in the second group. Did it sell within the last month? You're in the third group. Did it not sell at all? You're in the fourth group. So you can see how we can have now a tie-breaking bucket system. But at the end of the tie-breaking game, you're going to have a bunch of people who are tied. They updated the resource in the last day and they had a sale within the last day. And you're going to have a whole bunch of resources. So you need to sort those resources numerically. And that's why I think the final sort here is something called SEO score or store rank. I don't know what the name is, but it's a numerical value that is calculated based on a secret formula. If we go back to the science activity search example, the next step that Algolia would apply would be personalization. So if I'm signed in and the algorithm knows about the kinds of resources I like, then it'll show me similar resources, or those resources will get a boost. I don't think TPT has enabled personalization right now, because when I search for a term when I'm logged in and when I search for a term when I'm not logged in, I get the same results. Step 4 is about something called rules, and we're going to talk about that later on. I'm not talking about the tie-breaking rules, although they both have the word rule. I'm talking about something specifically that Algolia has, which is you can hard code some rules that apply if certain search terms are looked up or on a certain category page. We'll talk more about that next week. Step 5, dynamic re-ranking, is really important because it means once you get to this stage of search, if you're in the top 20 or the top 100 results, you then get boosted up or down based on the number of sales you've had recently or the number of conversion events. Go check out the video up there to watch more about dynamic re-ranking. That will shift the top results on page 1. And then finally, Algolia will look to see if there are any rules that prevent specific products from showing up, and that happens after re-ranking. When we go to our store pages and when we scroll down and it's sorted by bestsellers, I think this list of 20 resources goes through the same Algolia process. Could it be different from the main search engine? Of course. One difference is we know right away, when I go to the bottom of my TPT store page, it only shows 20 results per page. And the usual TPT search page shows 24 results. So of course, TPT could modify the way that our resources show up here for bestsellers as opposed to most relevant. But I think we can make some assumptions, and these assumptions help us crack the search algorithm to figure out how it works. I don't think personalization or rules apply on our store pages. Rules only work on specific search queries. So an example of a rule might be if someone looks up first week of school, they're actually searching for back to school. And you can have a rule that will replace the search term. And I also don't think the first 7 rules of Algolia applies, because the first 7 rules are about figuring out which resources in the TPT database are relevant to the search term that you're looking for. And that's based on the keywords that you typed in. But in our store, all of the products that you made are relevant to your store. So we can ignore the first 7 rules because we're not looking for specific keywords. We're just showing all the stores made by this particular TPT seller. That means that on our search store listings, I think the only things that are applied are the business relevance criteria, which is custom rule number 8, and the dynamic re-ranking. And this is what I think makes it so hard for outsiders like us to try to figure out how the TPT SEO algorithm actually works. Because sure, we can try to crack the SEO score formula, but even if we do, TPT re-ranks the top 20 resources based on the last 30 days of clicks in search terms. Oh, maybe it doesn't apply because dynamic re-ranking is specifically for a search term. I still feel like, maybe dynamic re-ranking doesn't apply. And I say that because dynamic re-ranking is search term specific. When someone searches up science activity and they click on the first resource, that first resource gets a boost the next day in terms of search ranking for science activity, but it wouldn't get that boost for science experiments because that's a different search term. So then in that case, the way that our resources are listed on our store page, it gives us some really deep insight into how the search algorithm works. So which factors are the most important in that TPT SEO score? Back at the end of July, I made a TPT SEO game for us to be able to have conversations about this. It's a free resource, TPT seller tip number 15. And if you haven't had a chance to play with it, I would go check it out. You can test some of the theories you've heard, like, wish listed is the most important, or conversion rate is the most important thing to TPT SEO. Well, this game lets you figure out, looking at your own data, whether that's true or not. So if I type TPT seller, that's interesting. And I need to talk about this right now because I may not see this screen again, but this is really important. It says here for suggestions, TPT, TPT stores, TPT school access, teachers pay teachers, TPT gift card. Can you imagine a scenario where a teacher goes to TPT and they type in the search bar, teachers pay teachers? And the answer is no, because they're already on the TPT website. So what this means is that in this version of the search algorithm that I'm on, they're using Google Analytics data to fuel their auto suggestions here. You got to pause and peek at here. I'm going to go Control-Shift-I to open up the developer panel. I'm going to go to network and I'm just going to type TPT seller again. All right. And I can click on the last one that has Algolia in it because I want to see what the popularity rank is. Oh, this is fascinating. Okay. The search term TPT has a popularity rank of 403. So do we think on Google, TPT has been searched up 403 times in the last 30 days or 403,000 times? I don't know, but that's an interesting number. If I scroll down here, TPT stores has been searched up 86 times. TPT school access has been searched up 80 times. And the phrase teachers pay teachers, one word, has been searched up 47 times. It can't be 47 times in the last 30 days that people on Google have searched up teachers pay teachers. So I wonder if it's 47,000, or I wonder if this is a mix of their seller data with Google Analytics data. If I type here back to school, and if I scroll down here and open up the last Algolia tab, here we go, back to school activities, 1,600. If I go up here, back to school itself has been searched up 2677. Sorry for the distraction, but the point is TPT search is constantly changing. The way that we think it works today may not be applicable tomorrow. And that's the challenge with any TPT SEO course. How do you know that you're getting the most up-to-date information? Because it's changing in real time. If you search up TPT seller and click on the store, Mike Fuchigami TPT seller tips, here are my resources for TPT sellers. And it's right here, TPT seller tip number 15, or I can search in my resources the number 15. And here I go. Here's the search algorithm game. It's a Google Sheet tool. So if Google Sheets is not your jam, this is not the resource for you. Make sure you check out the terms of service to make sure you're comfortable with this tool connecting to the TPT website. I'm going to allow access. Instructions on how to play the game are here, but I'm just going to go to the game board. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to insert my product.csv file. I'm going way too fast because the other video that I did in July walks you through step-by-step what to do. So I've just pasted in my products.csv file, and I'm going to copy my store link into this yellow box here up at the top here. I'll just go Control-Shift-V. There we go. what it's done is it's pulled up the list of resources on my TPT store page, and it's put beside it all of my product stat CSV files. So if you think that conversion rate is the number one reason that products get to the top of TPT search, all you do is above conversion, you type the number 1 and you hit enter. And what it does is it calculates a formula based on the conversion rate, and that accounts for 50% of the listing order here. If I delete that, if I think page views are the number one factor for TPT search, and I put a number 1 there, again, I get 50%. Last time I thought it was wish listed. So I'm going to put 1 for wish listed, and I can see that wish listed alone counts for 60% of my results today. And that's changed from the past. It's kind of like a recipe. I'm going to put 1 tablespoon wish list and 4 tablespoons earnings. Let's see what happens with that. Now that accounts for 65% of my listings. I'm looking at these colors. I'm trying to see, which one has a lot of dark colors at the top. I'm going to say units times the current price, because the number of units sold times the current price of the resource gives the potential earning potential of that resource. And I think that's going to be pretty important. What if the number of reviews is a factor? I'm going to add a 1 there. No change. What if I had 4 cups of wish listed and 10 cups of units times the current price? Then it accounts for 14 out of 20. What if I do 50 cups of wish listed, 50 cups of units times the current price, and 10 cups of page views? So that formula of secret herbs and spices accounts for 75% of the search order on my store page. And at the bottom, there's this screenshot tab, and I can get a scorecard that I can now compare with other people's scorecards. So I'm going to go through some scorecards that I've received, and you're going to either agree or disagree with some of their observations. And that's okay, because we all have different data. And the point of this is try to figure out some big patterns. This tool is to help us avoid generalizations or, I heard a bunch of people or this experienced seller talk about how this factor was the most important thing on TPT search. Well, now you can test that theory to see if it's true for your data. And you can encourage that person who made that bold statement to try this game with their data to see if they get the same results. So version 15 is free. It lets us look at our product stats CSV data for the lifetime stats of our product. Version 16 is an advanced version that lets us compare product stats so we can see whether the last 30 days of product stats makes a difference in this game. So there are a few TPT sellers in our Facebook group who shared their scorecards for a chance to win a $100 TPT gift card. We're going to look at their results to see if there are any patterns. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to give away a $100 gift card to one of them. So here's my scorecard at the end of July. And you can see back then, wish listed was the number 1 factor. I wrote in my comment that the contest ends at the end of August 31st, 2024. The screenshot itself is the entry. It doesn't matter whether you got a great score. The point of this is just to play with the numbers and to get more TPT sellers thinking about how the formula could actually work. So I shared my screenshot, and my observation was that the wish listed resources seem to be the biggest impact on TPT score, because you can see here the blue bar all the way across is wish listed. So I wrote that down. Adding to wish list, one person had that as the biggest factor. The first entry we got was by CP, and I'm just going to use people's initials here, but I can see from their scorecard here that units downloaded or sold had the biggest amount in the search formula when this person was tinkering with it. So I added that to the list, units downloaded or sold. We have one example of that. And then they wrote, "Thanks for the cool game, Mike. My best score is quite low. I suspect that it may be due to products with no sales being in my top 20 for some reason." And that's an interesting observation. On our store pages, it's called sort by bestsellers. On the TPT search page, if I enter in a blank search, they call the sorting relevance. I think it used to be called bestsellers. Someone leave a comment and let me know if I'm just imagining things. I think relevance and bestseller mean the same thing. I think they're calling it bestseller because that phrase probably sells more than calling it relevance, but who knows? If we look at our store resources and we look at bestsellers and we think of it as relevance, that can explain why some resources that have no sales end up at the top. So I made a note of that comment on the side here, no sales. It's an interesting observation. Person number 2, BI, they found that wish listed was the strongest influencer on the search algorithm. So I kept track of that on the score page here. They wrote, "I have many bundle items in my top 10, which affects the calculation. I think TPT's SEO is considering potential income or combining data from each product in the bundle for the ranking." And I know from chatting with a few TPT sellers that we've had similar observations as well. So I've added that on the side here. It looks like there could be a bundle effect. When you have a sale on an included resource, it seems to boost the bundle as well. Person number 3, CLS, it looks like units times the current price was the biggest influencer in their game. So I added that to our tally count. And they wrote, I've spent the summer changing my titles to better reflect the SEO requirements. I hope to see a positive change in August and September. CLS, I would love to hear about your August and September, because I think if you change the titles and if you did some keyword research or you knew what you were going after and it was possible to get on page 1 for those keywords, then I think your August and September were probably pretty good because you removed any decay factor by updating the titles and you've optimized your titles and your products for those keywords. So I hope you had a great August and September. Here's the scorecard for person number 4, NM. And they had wish listed as their largest influencing factor. So I added that to the tally sheet and they commented, if I add a number to page views or earnings, it goes down to 35%. Person number 5, KH, shared this and it looks like page views was the biggest influencer in their game. So I added that to the tally. The best score I can get is 60%. It looks like page views is my biggest factor. I tried changing the other factors to be more than page views, but then the scores dropped down. So that's part of the game. We're just tinkering around with our data, trying to look for patterns. Person number 6, SB, their biggest factor looks like earnings. I added that to the tally and they wrote, I had a 4-way tie. Earnings, conversions, units sold, and units downloaded or sold were all 12 out of 20. So then I went back to the tally count and I gave those 4 categories a quarter point, and this is what our tally score looks like so far. Person number 7, MC, it looks like they're tied for page views and earnings in terms of the biggest influencers on TPT search. So I added half a point to both of those tallies. And they wrote, I tried a lot of different combinations and couldn't get it higher than 14 out of 20. And that makes sense. I don't think it's possible to actually score 20 out of 20 in this game because remember, it's not just SEO score that's being applied. Before the SEO score final ranking happens, the TPT search algorithm would have put them into buckets for the tie-breaking part. Was it last updated today? Yes or no? Was it last sold today? Yes or no? And being in yes or being in no, I think will put some big changes in terms of where you rank. Person number 8, GS. It looks like page views was the largest factor on their game, so I added a tally. They observed that I have 4 items in my top 10 that have never even sold. And so I added a tally to that as well. Earnings alone can't be used to sort the final ranking, which personally I find really surprising because TPT is a business and their goal is to make money. So then the question is, why would you show a resource that isn't a proven seller yet? Remember, the search algorithm is designed by humans and humans are figuring out what to weigh more heavily. I wonder if the search people have decided that, you know what, adding to wish list is a bigger factor because it has potential. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Or maybe a better question is, if you were designing a search algorithm, what would you make the number 1 factor? Scorecard number 9 was from DC, and it looks like votes very narrowly was the largest impact in their game. So I added that to the bottom. Votes is the number of reviews that your product has. They wrote, I had 65%, but then fooled around with it and couldn't get past 60%. This is pretty neat. And I have done that as well. I'm just tinkering around and trying different number combinations, and then you get a high score that you can't get anymore because you try to make it better. I feel your pain. DC writes, I'm curious if it's different for very seasoned sellers because there's more data. I'm relatively new. So I added that to the tally count, the observation that maybe low data influences our ability to find patterns, and it probably does. I think it's the same formula that's being applied to all sellers, regardless of where you are on the TPT journey. It doesn't make sense that they would have a different search algorithm based on the age of your store. And I think it's the outliers that give us some really interesting insights. So new sellers who have very low data, it lets us test out some theories. Because if you can have resources that show up in your top 10 that have never sold, it means that earnings alone can't be the biggest factor for TPT SEO. Scorecard number 10 is by LF, and their biggest influencing factor was the units times the original price. So I added that down to our tally sheet. This is my screenshot. I've been playing with it for a while, and 50% was the best I could get. And I love that you played with it for a while. That's the dream. LF, if you watch this, I'd love to know, is it mostly bundles that are in your top score? And I asked that because units times price, the original price, The original price is the bundle price, or it could be the price of a resource that you've discounted. And so I wonder if units times price here is really a reflection of that bundle effect. Entry number 11 was by KS. It looks like units sold was the biggest factor for them. So I tallied that up here, and they wrote, "This has been interesting to play around with. 5 or so of my top 20 are old resources that sold well at one time, but are slowly being overtaken with new things in my store. For context, I posted a handful of things in 2012, pre-previews, covers, etc., and mostly let them sit until 2022, when I started adding new things to my store. My top seller doesn't have a preview, so that 0 really plays around with the outcomes. I have updated somewhat some of those older resources, and so I thought this was interesting. I wrote this down, that having no preview doesn't prevent you from showing up at the top of your search page. It might prevent you from showing up at the top of TPT Search, because TPT Search might have a rule that says if you don't have a preview, hide this resource. KS, I wonder if you're describing a decay factor, because you wrote here that you had some resources, those older resources, sold well at one time, but they're slowly dropping in sales. And if I was chatting with you, I would wonder, when was the last time you updated those resources? Because if you haven't updated it in the last year, I think there might be a decay penalty that is putting you into a lower tie-breaking group, and it's preventing you from showing up higher in search. And finally, LV shared this scorecard. Wish listed looks like it's the #1 influencer, so I added that to the tally card. They wrote, "Working with this tool and finding some very interesting data. My best-selling product has 31 page views and 2 product previews, 0 for everything else across the multiplier row, and yet it's at the top of the list. It's a growing bundle with 50 plus resources included." So here we come back to that bundle effect. Are bundles ranking higher in TPT because the bundle score is based not only on the bundle's metrics, but also gets a boost from the sales of included resources? LV goes on to say that 10 out of 20 of the bestsellers were published between April and May of 2024, so a couple of months ago. And with most of them, I used Mike's keyword tool to focus on the product title. Those products show multiple white areas in the grid. And so by white areas, I'm going to guess that that means that for some of the product metrics, they have 0. 7 out of 20 items have no sales. 12 out of 20 have no rankings or votes. And then the comment is, I wonder if results are unique to each store. So I added to the tally sheet the observation about how there could be no sales at the top, and bundles might include deal ranking boosts from included resources. But to answer this question, I don't think results are unique to each store, because I think it's the same formula that's applied to everyone. And if we can look for patterns for what seems to be the biggest impact on our store ranking, I think that helps us to figure out what's in this black box. So based on this small sample size, if we look at the factors that seem to be most important based on our scorecards, it looks like add to wish lists and page views were big influencers. And it was interesting to note that you can have products with no sales as a quote bestseller, unquote. And we seem to notice that there's some sort of bundle effect. All right, it is time to give away a $100 TPT gift card to one of these 12 people. I'm going to copy this list of names. I'm going to go to random.org. I'm going to create a new giveaway. I'm going to paste in the list of names. So I have all 12 names here, and it says here on the side there are 12 entries. We're going to play this game 5 times. What that means is random.org will randomly select a name, and it'll show up at the top of this list. And whoever's name is at the top of the list at the end of round 5 just won a $100 TPT gift card. So let's begin the giveaway. I wish to continue. And at the end of round 1, if we were only playing 1 round, then CP, you would have won $100. But there are 4 rounds left, and we're playing this 5 times. So we have to keep going. All right. At the end of round 2, the winner was NM. You would have won $100, but we're going to 5 rounds. The winner of round 3 is KS, but KS, we're going to the end of round 5. So close yet so far. Here's the next round. The winner of round 4 is LF. You would have won $100 if we were only going 4 rounds, but we are going 5 rounds. And this is the final round. So whoever name is at the top of this list, you just won a $100 TPT gift card. And the winner of round 5, the winner of the $100 TPT gift card is SB. SB, you just won a $100 TPT gift card. I'll reach out to you via Facebook, and then I'll get you to email me directly so that you know that you're communicating with me. Thank you to everyone who submitted a game card. If you like this kind of stuff, go check out facebook.com/group/TPT SEO. And after watching this video, if you feel strongly, oh, the biggest influencer is conversion rate, because that's what everyone says it is, then I invite you to download this free resource, TPT Seller Tip number 15, play the game yourself, and see if that matches what you see in your own store. If you've learned something new, can you please hit the like button? It really does encourage me to make more videos like this, which then helps you on your TPT journey and other TPT sellers like you. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.